Okay, so actually, we'll start off the discussion with because I saw on your mind's post that being able to purchase real things is the big obstacle with cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all this kind of stuff. Um, Thoughts on that? Like, what's going on right now in the markets? Like, basically, I know it's expanding as far as what you're able to get with it, and it's like a daily thing where it's getting better at it.
Yeah, well, it's in my opinion, there's no better time to really get involved in Bitcoin and crypto because I mean, yeah, you could have made more if you got involved in the early days, but a lot of people also lost their coins in the early days because there wasn't as much infrastructure. When I got involved in Bitcoin, it was kind of difficult to purchase some. I mean, you had Mt. Gox at the time, and you had to wire money to, Japan, and money wires are really expensive. Now we have so much infrastructure. There are many exchanges. They now have Bitcoin debit cards and credit cards. You could use it just like a regular debit or credit card, but it's backed by Bitcoins or linked to your Bitcoin wallet. The exchange that I use, Quadriga CX, I can have, if I want to cash out, I can have money put in my bank account within a day or under 24 hours. It's very easy to purchase Bitcoin. There are many merchants, over 100,000 of them that accept Bitcoin directly. So it's definitely a great time because we still haven't reached market saturation or widespread consumer adoption yet. So even if you got involved in cryptocurrencies right now, you'd still kind of be considered an early adopter because we probably only have about 5 million users at most, I'd say. So you compare that to like 100 million or a billion people that you get with some of the other technologies or social media, the technological S curve. It's still a good time to get involved, and there's still many new innovative projects being launched every month. So,
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing. There's so much uh, activity, development that's happening right now. It's really hard to keep up with all this stuff, but it's exciting what you were saying earlier about if you like to research, if you like to get into something that challenges you. There's no shortage of stuff to research in this field, and it's only, I think, going to start expanding and growing as far as the possibilities and opportunities that are within the market.
absolutely, absolutely. And, for those who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, um, the level of friction, aside from the learning and the, adapting to the technology, learning new things, but as far as like a financial investment, the level of friction to get involved and build a crypto business is really low. The cost is really low. Even if you have a really good killer app idea and you're a developer, you could just raise the money really, really easily through an ICO. I mean, people are raising millions of dollars for their businesses and ICOs, right? If you're just doing online marketing, doing a site, stuff like that, affiliate marketing, it's not very difficult to get involved. And if you want to get into trading and investing, then you can really start with any amount of money in your pocket. So it's compared to many of the other industries, it's ripe with opportunity, and many CEOs and developers, because they're all working in startups, they're quite approachable, right? I mean, I've added many contacts on my Skype just by reaching out to people, right?
Yeah, that's a really kind of neat and exciting thing for me too with doing this show, and I basically just like to research things and keep up to date what's going on as far as in the digital world and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, I have made just I mean, the show is not even that old. It's like this is what, our fourth or fifth week, and it's just amazing all these different opportunities because everybody is, on the startups are really approachable. They're really trying to recruit people. Anybody that's has some passion or knowledge or is just interested. That's how I got involved with the scenario people. And then, like you said, there's other opportunities than just like what you were saying about the blogging. There's this service that's starting where they're trying to do a peer-to-peer marketing, and where it's a the 150 blogger. I forgot what it exactly, but yeah, with Open Ledger and all that kind of stuff, which was
Nice.
interesting. Yeah, so basically what they're doing is they want to start having a peer-to-peer network of organic marketing, and so they're like recruiting bloggers and other stuff to kind of like say, hey, we don't need to. So it's a decentralized blockchain version of Google AdSense. Basically, that's what they're trying to develop, and I thought that was just fascinating. I was like, that's cool. Like, and like how you said you got involved with your friend by blogging. So I mean, there's so many different opportunities that are not just limited to like say, if so maybe if you're not like numbers are not necessarily your thing, but you're more enthusiastic or you're more about the marketing side of it. There's plenty of startups that probably need some people to have voices and to help them frame stuff. I know Scenario is actually looking for people like that with their project, and they're really cool people. They're very exciting. They're into all sorts of different things. Part of it is a social networking site, but that's only like the tip of the iceberg. They're trying to develop applications and a new way of using kind of like the blockchain more than just for finance, which is I find interesting. But I guess
Yeah, absolutely.
let's go into I read your article. The altcoin projects need market makers, so let's go to about that market participators and
Yeah, so there are a lot of interesting projects that get released, but unfortunately, a lot of the developers don't really think about keeping the order books on the exchanges, their markets healthy, right? And they might overlook this detail, just kind of focusing on the technology. Some might take a purist approach and say, well, trading is just whatever, it's predatory, or people just try to make money, blah, blah, blah. We're not about that. Or sometimes you get developers that are just pump and dumpers. They'll just, have a bunch of pre-mined ICO coins and just dump on everyone, take everyone's money, and start something else. Or then you'll have developers that are just so focused on the tech that they don't really care about the markets. And nor should they necessarily trade or keep the order books healthy themselves. But you know a good project needs to have market makers, in my opinion. And what a market maker is a professional trader who generally runs a trading algorithm, or a bot essentially, that fills orders on the books, both on the buy and sell side of the books, to make the order books liquid, to add liquidity. And there are a few reasons why you need to have liquidity in your markets in order for a project to be successful. One is that miners who are helping secure your network generally need a place to sell their coins, right? Because they have operational expenses, and mining generally translates into selling pressure. So if the order book's too thin, then miners who sell their coins will get what's a lot of slippage. Slippage is when you can't get a good fill on your order, and it just pushes the price down because there aren't enough orders to absorb your sell order type of thing, or buy order. So as a result, what'll happen is most miners will just move on to more liquid coins or other projects, and then you'll just get these projects that are dominated by just a few miners. But even if they mine the lion's share, there's no real market for them to be able to sell it at. So you could look at the price of a coin and say, oh, this coin's worth $1, but is it really worth $1? Like, how much volume worth of sells or buys can the order books handle to keep the dollar valuation? If it could say it's worth $1, but then you try to sell $10,000 worth of coins, and if you push the price down to 50 cents in doing so, well, then it's not really worth $1, is it? Maybe on paper, but that's what happens when you have an illiquid order book. Also, merchants, most merchants, again, this is selling pressure. Merchants accept coins unless they're willing to speculate long term. Many of them will just kind of convert them into dollars or whatever, because they also have expenses, and we're not at a point yet where you can just pay your bills, your utility bills, and whatever your rent and stuff with cryptocurrencies, right? So a lot of these merchants who have storefronts or these operational costs need to convert at least a portion of their holdings into fiat. If you don't have a healthy order book, then again, they experience slippage. So even though they charge, let's say $50 for a product, are they actually going to, get their $50 worth if they try to convert it? Also, developers who happen to have some coin holdings, maybe they need to pay their bills and operational costs. And again, without a healthy order book, where are they going to be able to convert that? And then new participants who want to come into the market and purchase coins, will they be able to purchase coins without pushing the price up too high? So having liquid order books actually just attracts new traders, new investors, new market participants into the space, new miners, new potential merchants. The exchanges are kind of like the heart of any crypto project. Like, yes, you can have whether it's a decentralized exchange or a centralized exchange. I mean, there's all kinds of really cool decentralized exchange projects, right? Where you're not storing your private keys with a third party. Unfortunately, many of these platforms, decentralized platforms, are the most illiquid markets, which is why most serious traders will send money to exchanges, because traders need to trade where there is liquidity and volume. So I think that any developers who are launching a new altcoin project need to factor market making into their strategy. Oftentimes they allocate some of their budget towards development, PR, marketing, obviously accounting, maybe some legal stuff, depending on the size of the project. But, do they allocate any of their budget towards market making, or at least trying to secure professional market makers to keep the markets healthy? And so you see so many innovative projects. You look at the order books and their markets are dead. So as far as I'm concerned, if you have a dead order book, the tech could be amazing, but if your order book's super thin and there's no volume and no one's trading it, to me that tells me that there's no interest in your project. So, or very little anyways.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a sign that they're not going to necessarily survive past the development stage, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You want to go into what you're into right now? You kind of mentioned a little story.
All right. So yesterday was an interesting day. This new platform called Lisk launched yesterday officially, and they're kind of like Ethereum, where you could build, decentralized smart contracts or dApps, and DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. But what they marketed themselves or branded themselves as is easier to use because it's written in JavaScript, right? So they're trying to attract more developers and so on and so forth. Anyways, they launched an ICO. I think they made like $6 million from the ICO. The launch was delayed probably by several weeks. And so officially they launched yesterday. And for ICO participants, I participated a bit in that ICO because as a trader and investor, I basically just want to turn a profit, right? But unfortunately, their wallets weren't working yesterday on launch, so a lot of people were flipping out. After about 5 hours of trying, I finally managed to get half of my coins on the exchange. Fortunately, I made back my principal investment plus a 60% profit, and I still have half my coins. So if I were to tally it at its current prices, I'd say I made approximately 200% returns on that. Although what was very taunting is that during price discovery, you see these wild price swings and really high valuation, high prices. When I couldn't log into my wallet, 10,000% profit was staring me right in the face. So
That's part of the reason why everybody was freaking out, right? Like, what the hell?
yeah, exactly. So you have to be careful with ICOs. I mean, if you want to know the truth, I think fundamentally we're in an ICO bubble, and I think a lot of them are kind of scammy. And in my opinion, like if you're raising millions of dollars and you don't have a functioning wallet at launch, there's something wrong, right? I mean, there's something just that just doesn't add up, in my opinion, um, because I've seen crypto projects that raised no money that were done on shoestring budgets that had much better wallets at launch, right? And networks and all that stuff. So, we're in a little bit of an ICO bubble where developers are just kind of making millions of dollars launching these projects. Some of them are just kind of copycat projects. They'll just copy source code from other projects, raise millions of dollars. There's a lot of hype, a lot of marketing, so on and so forth. Some of them just kind of turn into pump and dumps or whatnot. And, another thing too is not only do they raise and sell all these coins, but then they keep, anywhere from 10 to 20% of the supply for themselves, which, once the markets get rolling, end up worth millions and millions of dollars. So it has kind of turned into a bit of a get rich quick scheme. I mean, you don't, when you launch an IPO for a company, for example, and you have investors, even though it's centralized. I mean, I love decentralization, but there's trade-offs for each model, right? Like when you launch a company, the company is responsible to the shareholders. They have to, release investment reports and try to make return on investment or whatever. But with ICOs, I mean, they could just sell you some coins and just take your money and provide you nothing, right? That said, so fundamentally, some ICOs have been successful and have produced some really innovative tech. Obviously, Ethereum is a real trend setter. It's created some groundbreaking technology that many other models are copying. But fundamentally, I think there's a lot of these projects are definitely overvalued as far as how much money they're raising for these ICOs. But that said, as a trader and investor, when I'm looking at anywhere from 200 to 1,000% profit or more by being able to, sell on opening day or during a big rally, it's kind of hard to turn that down, whether I agree with it philosophically or not. You can make a month's salary in a day, right? So
Yeah.
that's the double-edged sword. Now, not every ICO is going to provide you some of those returns. You have to buyer beware. You have to do your due diligence. Some of them are complete scams and won't produce anything, and might not even give you any return on investment once it hits the markets, right? So you really kind of have to know what you're doing and do your research.
Yeah. And I think too, what you were mentioning earlier was how the traditional or legacy market is looking to the crypto market. And I think this is part of kind of this bubble that's happening, right? Some more money is coming into the market, and kind of like what all bubbles happen. One person succeeds, like Ethereum, and then there's a bunch of kind of like uh, lack of a better word, copycat projects that kind of like want to piggyback on that success, or with the DAO raising so much money that they did, and there's similar projects coming up with that. And so I mean, doing your research, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You also have to look at the fundamentals. What's the supply? What's the cost for the supply? it's all about supply and demand, right? I didn't participate in DAO because during the creation process or the ICO, they had an unlimited, uncapped supply. Basically, the more money you pump into it, the more supply it'll have. And so for me, there needs to be a bit of scarcity there in order for it to seem appealing. Whereas if they have like more of a fixed or cap supply, then it becomes kind of like a first come, first serve model. And those who can participate during the ICO will have to buy in the open market, right? So it means that there's buyers there on opening day. And with Lisk, there were definitely buyers. I mean, the trading volume right now for Lisk is about half that of Ethereum on Poloniex. And Ethereum kind of crashed in price the day that Lisk got launched. So it definitely took a massive bite out of the market share. Now, as to whether or not that's going to be sustainable or not, or if it's just kind of hype that lasts during the first few days, that's a whole different story. So we'll have to see. If this volume is sustainable, though, I wouldn't be surprised to see a nice solid bull run. But the project really has to get their act together.
Yeah. Oh man. So I think too, what basically, what do you see right now in the current market, and maybe even project a little bit forward about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin being more acceptable as far as merchants? I remember this one good question that was in that thread. What would it take to get local governments to accept cryptocurrency? Maybe not even governments, but more people getting in, accepting cryptocurrency, making it easier to kind of use it.
Well, I know there's a town in Switzerland right now that's a municipality that's accepting Bitcoin directly for, paying utility and taxes and stuff like that. Um, I'm not sure if they're ever going to allow you to, pay government services with crypto. Because when you think about the fiat system, the one thing that actually gives fiat any sort of value in their system is that they force you to pay taxes in it.
Yeah.
So it's a type of money that's enforced under duress, right? Coercion and duress is what gives it its value. Because if you don't pay, then they'll come after you, and they require you to pay in their currency. And because there are so many taxes, I mean, if you add them all up, you're looking at least 50% or more on everything. Um, it's that's really what enforces that, and so that's what gives it faith, because the governments are so involved in business now. The government's kind of like a parental figure that watches over all business and economics and tries to be the guiding hand behind the economy. um, so that's what so are they going to accept an open source, competing decentralized cryptocurrency for those services? That's kind of outside their sphere of control. Probably not. Um, are they going to try to create their own kind of permissioned ledger, blockchain, cryptocurrency type of thing? Yeah, they're already experimenting and trying that out right now. But as far as accepting it, most countries are fairly lenient about using cryptocurrencies for merchants or trading it or whatever, as far as regulations are concerned. Um, yeah, they're fairly lenient. So as long as you're not using it for nefarious activity, then you should be all right.
Yeah. Um, I was kind of going to want to go back to what you're saying about the government. Yeah, I don't think it's my opinion too that they will ever totally accept it, but they'll set aspects of the blockchain and cryptocurrency and digital technology, but as far as the overall principle of it, no. But it's also too, what's happening is as there's more development and these structural things, it's a way to bypass the current system. Uh, you know, as far as you find you help the invest as far as your cryptocurrency and help the market of whoever merchant is accepting cryptocurrency. And the more you kind of use it with them, the more confidence they have, and probably the better service they will. And you keep on creating those markets, as far as you as a consumer. I mean, there's so many different aspects to it, right? Um,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah. So I mean, if you're like scared, oh, it's when I'm never going to be able to use it, then it's like that catch 22. Well, it won't be more acceptable unless people start using it. Like it has to start somewhere. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And the biggest thing with crypto and its main value proposition is for people who kind of want to have some level of independence or autonomy, because there's no one that's going to be there to coddle and spoon feed you with cryptocurrencies, right? Whereas like with the legacy financial system, you're given a daily spending allowance and you have your consumer protections and all these kind of stuff. And some of these things work out for a majority of people. Obviously, credit cards weren't designed for the internet, so you have a lot of credit card fraud because you pretty much have to give your private key just to make a purchase on anything, and that's stored all over the place in these centralized databases. So it becomes very easy to hack. So yeah, they have to have consumer protections for that. And it is the Wild West. You could lose money and get burned, right? So they're definitely with that autonomy and freedom comes a level of responsibility and due diligence, right? But with any level of independence and autonomy, due diligence is required. And in some sense, we kind of get the governments we deserve, really, because the majority of people today, I hate to say it, the majority of people today are not really concerned about, bettering themselves or their community. Or maybe not the majority, but there's still a lot of people out there that just want everything handled and taken care of and still kind of buy the rhetoric of politics. The Coke and Pepsi politics out there, they buy it year after year, the dribble, and it blows my mind.
yeah. Um, Also, to kind of going with this, we're kind of seeing signs of things developing more, and what's so exciting is, have you read that? There's been a bunch of different articles, but Delaware, they're experimenting with blockchain, um, as far as smart contracts, and even I think with the court system. Um, there's this one article I read. Delaware launches new blockchain initiative for businesses.
Yeah, they're obviously that's a very friendly area for businesses. A lot of people incorporate there from the States because of that. They have a little bit more of a laissez-faire approach. So it doesn't surprise me at all why they would be looking at cryptocurrencies, stuff like that. And they're probably trying to attract, some more companies and investment capital and all that stuff, and stimulate the economy with this new technology, right? Basically, like any geographical area in the world who's friendly to blockchains and cryptocurrencies and takes more of a lenient approach or hands-off approach to allow the technology to flourish and grow before trying to over-regulate it, those places are going to thrive economically as the economy shifts over to this. I mean, look at the automobile when that first got released. The UK or Britain, they actually had an opportunity to be pioneers in the industry, but because they tried to regulate it too heavily and the regulations didn't make a lot of sense. Like apparently you needed a flagman to run in front of your car, to warn people that this death machine was driving, right? So obviously they kind of lost on that innovation, whereas other places like the US that was a little more lenient towards that, they really developed their automobile industry. Now, the U.S. is kind of, there's a lot of exchanges and companies that have actually been blacklisting USIP addresses as a result of harsh regulations, especially like coming out of New York with the bit license and stuff. So those places may get left out essentially, because now with a global market, if if you don't want to play nice, then you just kind of get shut out entirely. So
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it would take, and this is not just for governments, for anybody. It's kind of altruistic, right? They and it's kind of like the similar to the trader or making the market. Well, you got to see kind of a little bit of futures of what's going on, and this is where a lot of money is shifting. This is where a lot of the exciting development is happening. So if you want to stay ahead of the game, and in the now with the climate of being a global market where there's competition like crazy, it kind of is wise to experiment with this, as far as being less regulations and letting it having a chance to grow places, and whatever sanctuary or whatever place is able to kind of incubate this new market, I think will benefit in the end. Just like if you do your homework and you find a new project that comes up and you help to invest in it, your returns will be good. And the same thing with the government, as far as if they could find a place to help foster them, this whole new way of doing things. Because I think this is just how it's going to go. You know, you can't necessarily stop the progress. I mean, you could stall it, but it's still going to happen.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And you know, we do see examples of them trying to stop or stall progress, like you know, Airbnb or Uber, applications that allow more peer-to-peer services where we can communicate directly with each other for the things that we need, and save money and make money and cut out the middleman. There's definitely some resistance and friction to that model, because you know, there are many monopolies like the taxi industry, you know, where a gold medallion will cost you about $1 million in New York, that are established monopolies because they've developed, you know, connections with the government that can enforce those monopolies, right? But if you leave it up to the free market, then you don't get those same levels of monopolies that you'd see. You'd get more. And what I like about this technology is, like, obviously, yes, like, you know, we have to have some things in place to protect the consumer, to protect individuals. And what I like about this technology is you can really base it on a peer-reviewed meritocracy, right? One feature that I think is kind of neat with Uber is that people can, you know, rate the driver and vice versa. And if a driver has poor ratings, then they just automatically get fired, right? So it really is a meritocracy. So both parties try their best to, you know, be the best possible people they can be during that experience and sharing that service, as a result of that.
Yeah, that's really something important. And with this whole kind of open source ethos, is that it's where we kind of flipped the script. Prior to this, with the monopolies and having centralized power and being backed by the government, it wasn't necessarily in your interest to be in the up and up. But when everything's out in the open, and when there's healthy competition, and that it is in your best interest to be on your, you know, to have a good working relationship, because like everybody could kind of like see how you are interacting with different things. So it's also kind of in your interest to run good business and to have a good ethos, and not to have a bad
You know, in the crypto, I'm not gonna lie, you know, in the crypto industry, there's a lot of con artists,
yeah.
and scams, and all kinds of stuff, right? It's you know, technology can't protect us from human nature, right?
Yeah.
But there's, as a result, you know, you'd be hard pressed to find a community of people who are, 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 resilient to many types of these kind of scams. I mean, there's some people, they just will chase hype no matter what,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of people who are kind of like the battle-hardened veterans who are kind of skeptical of anything that gets introduced, and they will research and try to vet and find holes in any proposition that's brought to the table, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you don't want to be too cynical. You want to be open-minded, but there's definitely a level of discernment. Like, for example, when that Craig Wright guy was claiming to be Satoshi Nakamoto, they punched holes in that
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. They
Which is
jumped all
really,
over him real quick.
oh
But
yeah, it was. I made a killing selling pitchforks and torches.
Yeah. But I think that's where I think we'll start wrapping it up right here. But I think that's something really important, is that the self-correcting, and what you were saying earlier, how you learn, and this is kind of goes into the free market, the Wild West, and it's like an ecosystem. And yeah, out in nature, it is kind of tough, and you have to survive, but it makes the whole ecosystem better for it. You learn by your mistakes. You get a little tougher, but you also get a little bit wiser from your mistakes, and that's part of, I say, your own personal development, the own development of real strong, true value markets, and not what we had prior to this, where it's all propped up
Absolutely.
by special interests, or kind of a facade and all that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely, absolutely. If the government tries to sanitize everything for you, then how can you build up your immunity to bullshit?
yeah. So we'll leave it there. Build up your immunity to bullshit is a real good one. Okay, I'd like to thank you for coming in. Always fun, and we'll do this next week, and we'll hopefully get some more questions, and we'll dig in deeper to new projects and what the market is going. Anything last you want to say?
No, this is always a pleasure. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on, and it's never a dull moment. I'm sure next week we'll have all kinds of new stuff to talk about. Check out our courses, learn more how to trade or invest in crypto, or just want to learn how to build passive income. There are multiple different ways of doing that. You could check out our site, skillincubator.com, and see some of our courses and information there. You could also look at my site, cryptohustle.com. I also have other links on there as well, and resources.